Hi, my name is Mike, and in this video we're going to be replacing the thermostat on our first generation 2007 Chevy Colorado pickup truck. This video should be applicable to all first generation Chevy Colorados, GMC Canyons, as well as the Hummer H3 and Isuzu variants that have the i5 inline 5-cylinder motor. We're going to be replacing the thermostat, which is a GM part number 12622316. You can get this at most auto parts stores or online on sites like Rock Auto or Amazon.com for between $30 and $40. Since the Chevy Colorado does not have a drain plug in the radiator, we're going to need to remove the lower radiator hose to drain the coolant. So since we have to take it off, we might as well put a new one on. The lower radiator hose is a 24523L, also a AC Delco part. And since we have to take everything off, I also recommend you have some hose clamps just to help you put everything back together again. Some additional tools you might need are a standard socket wrench, socket set, as many extensions as you can find, a swivel socket. I like to put a little electrical tape on mine just to keep it from wobbling around too much. We're going to be using this Prestone GM Vehicles Dexcool Premixed 50/50 coolant. I also recommend you just have a Leatherman or multi-tool handy and some things like Permatex. We might need a drop of that to hold the O-ring in place on the thermostat. You might also need things like jacks and a jack stand. This is the new thermostat, and it includes in the box there's a new O-ring on there. So we might just need a dab of Permatex to hold that O-ring in the seal while we assemble it. Looking from the front of the truck, the thermostat is not visible. It is located on the driver's side of the engine, below and behind the alternator. You can see there's the lower radiator hose where it connects to the bottom of the radiator, and kind of where it snakes around under there behind the alternator, beneath the intake and battery. So the only way to get to this is through the wheel well, and we're going to need to take a few different parts off to get best access to this. We're going to need to remove the plastic skid plate at the bottom to get to the lower radiator hose. We're also going to need to remove the tire and the inner liners that go around here. So I'm going to pause the camera for a moment while I get all of these parts removed, and once they're out of the way, we should be able to see where the thermostat is located on this vehicle. Before I begin, I should mention that in my experience, the thermostat on these vehicles usually fails stuck open, which means that the vehicle will run cool or fail to reach operating temperature. If it's running too cold, it may set a check engine light, which is a pretty obvious one. When it does come up, it actually says the vehicle is too cold. And you'll be able to see it on the gauge on the dashboard that the needle is not reaching the halfway point, or the typically around 195-degree mark. So if the needle is not raising high enough, you may also have poor heating in the vehicle and poor fuel economy because the engine is not reaching operating temperature to sufficiently burn the fuel. So it is possible that they might also fail closed, stuck closed, in which case your vehicle would overheat. Just mentioning that in my experience, they usually fail stuck open and the vehicle will run too cold. With the skid plate out of the way, you can now see where the bottom radiator hose connects to the radiator. And as I mentioned before, the Colorado does not have a radiator drain plug, so the only way to empty that out is by disconnecting the lower radiator hose. I suppose you could siphon pump it out too, but that's a lot of work. In any case, you're going to want a bucket. You're going to need to loosen those clamps holding the lower hose on, and just let everything drain into a bucket so that you are able to disconnect the hose and thermostat housing completely for removal. While we wait for the rest of our coolant to drain into that bucket, Let's take a look at these little clips that you need to remove this inner fender liner here. There's a total of 6 of those little push pin style retainers. Once all of them are removed, this entire fender liner piece should just fall right out. Let's set that to the side. And that now allows us to see where the lower radiator hose connects to the thermostat housing. And you can see one of the bolts there. The other is obviously just right on the other side, right up there. Alright, so that is why I mentioned you will want to have some different size swivel sockets and whatnot to be able to reach in there to get to them. Okay, so it's a bit tricky getting that top bolt back in. I tried to take a few pictures. It was impossible to hold a video camera in there at the same time and turn the wrenches. What I did was wrap a little bit of electrical tape around the base of the bolt to hold it in the socket while I got everything lined up. The bottom bolt, you can use that to hold everything in place while you adjust it to get the top bolt in. And once you get that in, everything should be pretty smooth sailing from here on out. Installation is reverse of removal, so we're just going to reconnect our hose to the bottom of the radiator. We got to put our cover back in here, our tire, and our skid plate sitting over there. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video again while I get everything buttoned back up. Obviously, once you are finished and you are refilling everything with coolant, you may have some air in the system and you may need to burp the system a little bit, squeeze the hose, let the air out. Sometimes it helps to rock the vehicle a little bit to get all of the air out of the radiator and the cooling system. So there's plenty of procedures online for that. Maybe I should make another video to show how to do that. But I'm going to go ahead and pause the video again while I button everything back up, and I'll pick up the recording if anything else comes up here in the next few minutes while I'm putting everything back. One other thing I should mention is that I do have the Z71 package, which has the torsion bar suspension. As you notice, I don't have coil springs up here on the front. If you have one of the other suspension packages that uses coil springs on the front, you're going to have a little bit less clearance reaching through here. It's going to be a little bit more tricky. Honestly, I'm not really sure what to tell you. In that case, it might be easier to take the belt off and take the alternator out and try to come at this through the front. It's definitely going to be a little bit trickier on the vehicles that have coil springs. So just something to be aware of. You may want to take a look at how your suspension setup is configured before starting this project, just so that you know what you're getting yourself into before you get everything taken apart. And just checking for leaks real quick. Everything looks good under there. No leaks. And for reference, fluid capacity is about 1.5 of these jugs, so about 1.5 gallons. Make sure you have 2 full jugs just to account for any spillage or anything like that, and also to refill your overflow reservoir. And that's just about it. I hope this video was helpful. I tried to show as much as I could. Obviously, it's pretty hard to get a camera down in some of those tighter locations, especially where the thermostat is located. Hopefully some of the tips I passed along will be helpful to you in your own car repairs. If this video was helpful, please like and subscribe to my channel. I hope to do a lot more car repair videos in the future, and it really helps me out a lot. Thank you, have a great day, and stay safe out there.